Successful IBR has a recipe to it. It's kind of like a cookbook. You just need to follow that recipe and kind of have faith in that process. So part of the recipe is going to be...
Hey, Louis, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Tim.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the time. And where does this podcast find you right now? What's been inspiring you lately?
I just got back from an NDIA conference where we did that artificial intelligence panel. That was a lot of fun. And then just the week before that, I was out doing one of my crazy endurance events. I was out at Moab in Utah.
Right.
And, yeah, I did a 3-day 50-miler. And the only eventful part about that was I fell once and I hurt my ribs. They're still a little sore, but I'm good. I'm good.
So did you find any inspiration as you were doing all these events out in the wild?
It's funny because I know we're going to talk about integrated baseline reviews today, and it just kind of reminded me that an endurance event is kind of like a marathon, for example. It's a long haul. You got to sort of brace yourself and take it slowly, pace yourself, right? And
Yep.
I think an integrated baseline review is similar. Like a lot of folks think of it as more of a big bang event, which is why I have my fancy background here. Sort of a big bang event that happens, say, 6 months into a program. But I like to think of it more of as a slow roll, that you're getting ready for it. And in fact, I try to think of IBR as I be ready. Okay. So you want the team to be ready to showcase their baseline.
Well, that's a perfect segue because we have been doing a lot of IBRs lately. We've been supporting quite a few integrated baseline reviews, and it, in my opinion, is a pretty unique time in a program's life cycle. But you started to touch on this, but I'm curious, just from your perspective and all your experience, why do an IBR?
I think maybe a better question is, I'm not trying to argue with you, Tim, but why not do an IBR, right? Because in an IBR, an integrated baseline review, right, it's a contractual requirement for a lot of contracts and larger contracts within 180 days. And I've heard a lot of folks, in fact, at the conference, I heard Ivan Bember say, why wait 180 days, right? So I would wholeheartedly agree with that, that why wait 180 days? You want to get your baseline set up as soon as possible, obviously. And if you can internally sort of kick the tires on your baseline ahead of the 180-day review.
So yeah, that's a really good point. So what makes a good IBR from two perspectives, really first of all, from the contractor team, but also what makes a good IBR for the government team or the customer?
Yeah, the whole point of it is to gain a mutual understanding of the baseline, the risks inherent in the baseline, technical, cost, schedule, resource, and management process risks. So it's really a good IBR is going to be one where you kind of put your cards out on the table and give the customer and the stakeholders the chance to see how the contractor has laid in their baseline, and then for the contractor to give kind of inspire confidence on the whole project team that there is in fact a sound baseline and the project's ready to go. Put its best foot forward.
Interesting. Yeah. So what I observed a bit of angst, I would say, in some of the IBRs we were in. And I think it was probably due to the point that you made a few minutes ago about, an IBR being perceived as sort of this big bang event. So what advice do you have to give to teams for preparing for an IBR?
I guess my first one, it's something we say a lot, I'd say, is lower the drama, right? To kind of, you want to really get the team comfortable and at ease, and comfortable with your data, comfortable with your with the different artifacts that you're going to show at an IBR, and just give everybody confidence that I always tell control account managers and project managers, nobody knows your project like you do. So when you have a review team come in, it is, there's a lot of room for angst there. People do get nervous, when the customer shows up or when the government customer possibly shows up as well. Sometimes even some, for example, DCMA, Defense Contract
Mhm.
Management Agency reviewers could show up. So there is this feeling that's a bit of an audit. But I would say go into it. Another thing I try to tell folks is think of it as free consulting. You have a team of folks coming in to visit your
Mhm.
site, whether it's virtual or on site, and kind of keep an open mind that they may have experience seeing other contractors and other projects, and they're bringing that to the table for you to learn from. So keep an open mind and try to relax.
Yeah, those are great points. We discussed after a recent IBR this idea of an offensive IBR mindset, and I was I was hoping you would explain that um, in in some more granular terms because it sounds rather aggressive in a way, but I think it's a different way of this whole mindset idea regarding IBRs.
Right. So I think the way that we say it is important. So it would be an offensive IBR, right? Not offensive. So the
That's
idea really is that um, be proactive. Get ready ahead of time. Get your team ready to put on a really good demonstration of your project, of your baseline, and you sort of take the reins of it, right? So rather than have
Mhm.
folks come in and ask you a bunch of questions, be ready to demonstrate to them, for example, your schedule, which integrated master schedule is one of the key artifacts that folks want to look at. So be ready to pop the schedule open and actually walk through the schedule in a live fashion, and be ready to have your control account managers do the same thing for their sections of the schedule. And rather than waiting for folks to ask you questions, you can kind of answer them as you present your portion of the schedule or of the project to the reviewers. So be proactive and don't wait for the questions to come. Be ready.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It makes me think about the various roles of the project team and the folks involved in an IBR. So what tips do you have for project managers, schedulers, CAMs, analysts?
Um, I would say that an integrated baseline review it has a recipe. A successful IBR has a recipe to it. It's kind of like a cookbook. You just need to follow
Mhm.
that recipe and kind of have faith in that process. So part of the recipe is going to be obviously getting your baseline together and your artifacts to go with it. So there's going to be a data call that your customer is going to want to receive some artifacts. You've got to get those ready. Do your best to get those as polished as you can. And then the other part is getting your project team ready. So control account managers are probably the key persons being interviewed during or reviewed or assessed during an IBR. So
Mhm.
we like to do mock interviews and basically put them in the hot seat for a moment so they can experience what it's like to have multiple questions coming their way. And it's not because they don't already know the answers or they don't know their data, but just because they can get kind of thrown off by that process. And it is a bit nerve wracking, I think, for CAMs. They might think
Mhm.
that it's more of an interrogation. So I would say, prepare them for that so they can actually be ready for those. So that's the main thing is that preparation.
Mhm.
You're also deciding what are the key artifacts that you're going to be showing and showing live. So again, to the extent that you can, I really do recommend trying to show some live artifacts for the reporting date that's being used. Okay.
What about this theory of rating yourself? Justification behind red, yellow, green. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Okay. That would be part of the offensive IBR. It's the idea that rather than wait until, say, the end of an IBR, where
Hmm.
the stakeholders, the review team, will say on the 5 risks categories, we rate you as red, yellow, green, for example. And also maybe the CAMs are assessed and kind of given a score, so to speak, for their presentation. And so rather than wait for that assessment, I would actually always advise doing your own self-assessment, being very kind of brutal with yourself, realistic, authentic about it, and saying, here's where we rate ourselves with these risks. And keep in mind too that these risks, having, for example, a red technical or red schedule or yellow schedule or resources, for example, those are just saying that those are the risks that we have today as we sit here for this review. So what you're going to do is you're going to rate yourself as honestly as you can ahead of time, show that to the team before the review even starts. And then also you're going to be ready to talk about your mitigation steps. What are your corrective actions or mitigation steps to try to reduce those risks? Okay.
No, those are great points. So those are great points for the program team. But shifting gears over to the customer, the government side, what are the common areas to look for from the government side when they're reviewing a team?
I guess from the government or customer perspective, nobody likes surprises, much less unpleasant surprises. So part of the whole purpose of an IBR is to see, what have you got? Show us your baseline, show us the level of detail that you've gone into, the level of granularity in your planning that you've gone into, and they want to get confidence that you have, assembled a really qualified team. So I think from the customer side, what I would recommend on that side really is, or what I like to see is that the customer comes in with a very, very open mind, comes in with, this is not a we're out to get you type of scenario. They're there to help, advise, maybe suggest some improvements, to ask questions, to question. It's definitely it's completely in their upon them to ask questions and hard questions, right? And I think that's good. But I think go into it too with a little bit of fun. You need a certain amount of levity so that everybody can just relax and have some good conversations during these sessions.
And there are a lot of players in the room, and I know we talked about roles within the program team, but what about the consultant's role? So we'll say like AzTech's role with the contractor versus the customer.
The approach we try to take is really to be a sort of a bystander. Okay, during the IBR, obviously before we're helping the contractor team to get ready. Sometimes we're on the government side too, so we help the government team to get ready to review the artifacts and so forth, to have some questions ready that are pertinent to the data. But on the contractor side, it's the key players really are going to be, because you're asking about roles, right? The key players are going to be the project manager. I always tell project managers to be quite proactive and be, and the CAMs to be confident in their data. Like I always tell them, no one knows your project like you do. Be confident in your data. Your tools, your processes. So control account managers can discuss that. People want to know, do you know the process? Do you know the terminology even? So there are some basic EV basics that the folks want to be comforted knowing that your team is trained and EV proficient. Okay. And then there's also the planner. The planners or schedulers are obviously a key role in an IBR because they're going to be talking to the integrated master schedule, which is probably the key artifact that comes because it drives everything. It's foundational, right? And then, of course, you've got your EV or program controls or finance analyst as well, or business manager, or that whole part of the team is there as well to talk about the EV side of the data versus the IMS or schedule side of the data.
So shifting gears a little bit, we had some time after our last IBR to do a little brainstorming internally at AzTech after experiencing the last event, and we had this conversation centered around like the ideal IBR. So from your perspective, what does the ideal IBR look like? What could the future maybe of IBRs even look like?
Yeah. So talking maybe just today, realistically, I think I love the idea of virtual IBRs, and we were promoting virtual IBRs long before COVID because we thought it was smart, both from the customer team and the contractor team, to be able to do things virtually. I still think that you can have a very effective IBR that way. I love that approach. Of course, sometimes folks want to come on site, and there's some really good value there too, because the teams actually get to know each other, and sometimes you don't have a chance to meet your government counterparts if you're on the contractor side, or vice versa. So it's a good chance to actually get to know each other. because you're going to be collaborating for the life of that project. The other part is for ideal, if we talk futuristic, it would be very cool to sort of push a button and output all the IBR artifacts on the contractor side so that they're just ready to roll and, at any time, right? So that an IBR does not become this, big ordeal to get your artifacts together, that it's just almost a push of a button to get your artifacts ready. On the government side, it would be nice to be able to review and assess those documents very quickly, again, with some automation. So I mean, my mind is going right to, AI and all the possibilities there to, more quickly and assess data or volumes of data just much more quickly, and maybe just pinpoint the areas that are really the weak areas or the trouble spots that are worthy of some conversation. That would make it a much more targeted IBR. So I think ideally, a great IBR should be targeted on the true trouble spots to help the team to improve or reduce the risks on those.
Well, thank you so much for all of this perspective, Louis. I always appreciate it. I appreciate it not only as the leader of AzTech, someone that's a leader in the corporate world and certainly a thought leader. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it from you as well. We always like having folks listen into our ideas, but also comment on them. So check back, as we currently are working on a series of podcasts. And please feel free to send us a note. Comment on any of our social channels and provide us with your thoughts and feedback. We're totally open to anything constructive and any criticism as well. So we'll catch you next time, and thanks for tuning in. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.